Episode 1 of In the Trenches with Zachary Madre, Dylan Pierpont, Grant Griffin, and our guest, Raul Ramos.
It's Madeir, but whatever.
Madeir, whatever.
Yeah.
Are you trying to roll the R?
It's a French-ass name.
It's a French-ass name. All right, so this is episode 1 In the Trenches is kind of what we're going with. For now, it's always up for grabs, but kind of stuck. But I guess a brief rundown of the podcast and kind of why
to do.
Yeah, what the aims of this whole mission is, and basically there's there's lots of resources going around on of established people in free resource, and it's great stuff and access, but there's not really a lot coming from people that are kind of currently going through all those things. So that's kind of what started this whole idea, and we thought we would offer that role because we're kind of in the midst of going through those things, and we're kind of the guys down in the trenches, working out all the issues. So the goal basically is just kind of hopefully help other people who are in a similar situation, and share information through our successes and many failures on our way.
So many failures.
On our way to get here, because this is all kind of things that they don't really teach you in school, and that you can't really learn in school. It's the kind of in the moment trial and error, trial by fire kind of deal. So hopefully we can alleviate some of that with this podcast, and we'll see where it goes. For this initial one, we're basically just talking about the roles of building relationships and the importance of that, and probably splash up with some work ethic and who knows what we get into, tangents.
Yeah.
But that's the gist, I think. And do y'all have anything else that I missed in that overwhelming intro?
Overwhelming intro.
I just wanted to reiterate. Sorry, Dylan, I interrupted.
No, go for it.
That it's meant to be like, I think maybe it sounds presumptuous to say that we haven't made it as if we're going to make it, but I think that is the idea, is that we're kind of in the middle of, we haven't just started. I mean, we're pretty close to having just been in school, but we're also starting to now get professional work and build and make a genuine living off of this, rather than like from gig to gig. It's like we're starting to get steady work, but we're not up there with the more recognizable names.
Exactly.
So hopefully that will be insightful for people who might be in this position or about to be, or just were.
Goals, still figuring shit out, or any of the above.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, this is Dylan. We all went to the same school, so we all sort of have the same initial background. We did do that. That's a thing that we did.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and so we all sort of have the same education, at least what we had right before we started kind of dipping our toe into the professional world. So that's, I think, something that we want to start with is how did we all sort of meet, really? Because I started RimCAD, I started Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. That was back in fall of 2008. Were you guys about the same time?
No, not at all. I didn't even really. I think that I was graduated with Raul, but before that, I didn't get there until 2010 because I transferred over from Texas State.
Really?
Yeah, so I was late. I didn't really even know y'all during school. It was afterwards through mentoring and stuff. But Raul's the only person that I knew during school, pretty much. I think I bumped into y'all once or twice, but I thought y'all were weird and I didn't really want to talk to y'all.
Yeah, I started at the same time Dylan did, so that was fall 2008.
Okay.
Jeez, I'm a geezer. I started in fall 2007.
What?
Yeah.
You're old, man.
Yeah,
Well,
dog.
you were double major for a while there, weren't you?
Yeah, but I didn't take any longer. I still took I went 2007 to 2011. I actually kind of graduated. No, I graduated a little late, but I graduated fall of 2011, like in December, so only an extra term.
All right, all right.
But yeah, I knew of you, Dylan. Grant, I can't say that I knew. You know what? You guys were like. I remember I was going out, like I was leaving. I was at the end of my education, and then all of a sudden, Shore was just full of you guys, like kicking ass. Like you guys were doing the same things that I were, like talking the same way, and you had your little like groups of like and I was like, what is going on? And I remember that group of people seemed really motivated, and I didn't necessarily have the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't really notice. I mean, maybe it was going on, but I just wasn't aware of it. I didn't notice too many kids that were kind of going out of their way early on in school to kind of do personal stuff on top of like homework and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was trying to do that here and there on my own time, but I don't think that really went into full gear until I started talking more with Raul, and we started doing group project stuff like I think it was our junior year, which was that was very cool for me to get to meet someone that was like interested in the same things that I was doing, the kind of things that I was trying to do. Just that whole kind of like-mindedness attitude was pretty eye-opening for me. And I don't know, that was my first kind of introduction to, oh my gosh, here's someone that's doing the same thing that I'm doing, or trying to at least. And I think I noticed that again with Zach when we had, I think it was a digital illustration class. I think it was the only class you and I had together, except maybe a life drawing or life painting class. But you were cranking out your own concept work at the time, and I was like, who were all these people? Where did they all come from? Why weren't they? How come I didn't know about them earlier? I felt like I was somewhat isolated as far as my interests were in my freshman and sophomore year, and then things started gelling. The more people I met later on. I mean, was that similar for you guys?
Yeah, like freshman year, I just kind of kept to myself a little bit, and that was partly due just because like I would go to school and I'd be busy like doing classwork like in class, and then I lived at the Regency. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right after class, I would just drive back there, and I'd spend the rest of the time like in my room, like finishing up homework and stuff like that. So that first year was I didn't really make too many connections. It wasn't until I think it was like fall of the next year, like I think that was like fall 2009, I guess. That's when I started getting into like the kind of the more upper level like illustration classes, and the biggest one I think that actually helped me like make more connections was landscape painting. And Dylan, you were in that class with me, right?
Yeah.
Was anybody else?
I don't think we talked the entire time.
No.
Sounds about right.
No, but like that was where I started meeting more people, because I think like we would like carpool with different people like every week up to wherever we were painting, and so you'd have conversations with people in the car, like you would you'd go out painting, and sometimes you'd be next to different people while you're painting, and that's kind of where I started making more more connections, and that's actually where I started getting introduced to the Shore building as like a place to work, because prior to that, as a freshman, like that's where all the upperclassmen were, and I was just like intimidated by them, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go in there because I didn't feel like I had any business in there, you know. And that's where I was like, that's where I really started like, that's you stay late. Right? I remember like going for like a tour of REMCAD when I was like checking out schools, and I remember this one guy saying like he took us to the short building. And he's like, yeah, if you're an illustrator, you're gonna live here. Basically.
I think you and I think we were on the same tour. I was gonna say that was the exact quote that I remember. Doing the same thing, the tour of RIMCAD, and I remember when he said that about the shore building, I was like, yeah, that's whatever. Yeah. And you find yourself, by your junior, sophomore even, and senior level courses, and we're all hanging out there till like 3 a.m. Like that never really, I don't know, that never dawned on me as a freshman that was going to be my reality, and it totally ended up being the case. A few years down the road, that was strange.
Yeah, and that's where I really started like meeting people, because I didn't want to go back, to work in my little room at the Regency. They had the Cintiqs there, and I was just really getting into digital work, and it was a nice open space, just a nice place to work. So I ended up staying there a lot of the time, and you just meet. You start noticing the people who stay there,
like noticing their work, or like.
Well, you notice their work, but then you're also like, it was consistently the same people who stayed there, pretty much every night. So you just kind of get to know those people, and I think that's.
Make the art and go to Winchell's.
Yeah.
Oh God, man, I miss Winchell's and I miss Viva Burrito.
Oh God. The best combination you can possibly have.
Yeah, that'll put you to sleep.
Giant breakfast burritos and fucking donuts.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, I think that's a good. Actually, I didn't really understand the significance of like, it's just neat that these connections that I thought maybe started with like probably what happened for us next. I thought they started then, but they really started
afterwards.
What?
Like after, we're like the worst people to talk. I don't think any of us really talked to each other in school.
No, I actually was gonna say they started beforehand, because we weren't like best friends, like hanging out all the time than we have been for 5 years, but we definitely knew of each other, and those connections were like forming. Like we were all making an effort to work hard and like to kind of be in, put ourselves in the situation where we were working really hard, like in like staying after and stuff. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Totally, and I think that was it was interesting to see that in hindsight. Like you don't go into like you don't go up to talk to someone or introduce yourself with the intent of this is going to be someone I want to know. It's much more.
Going to give me a job in 2 years.
Right. It's not at all.
Let me buy you some coffee.
It wasn't at all like that. It was always just hey, this guy seems cool. Like he's doing cool stuff. I bet I can learn something from him. Like, let's be friends. I don't know, in a very juvenile way of putting it. Like that's pretty much what it boiled down to.
Kind of way.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember Raul like asking you for help when I was working on like there was like a contest for this game called Rift or something, and I was doing like a monster, and I was also doing like some flying monster, and I was asking you for advice. Back then, I remember seeing your work and just being like blown away, and I remember being intimidated to ask you for help, like, and Dylan and Grant. I'm sure I would have been. I don't remember Grant.
No, I wasn't even. I was still trying to learn the pencil at that point. Yeah, just transferred over from Texas State, being a dungus, and still kind of like a state school mindset, and thinking I was good at art at that point. And my moment of realization hadn't come yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I didn't mean to interrupt. Where you're going.
No. I guess the next, like, unless, did any of you guys have any other moments like that at school, or the next thing that happened for us is pretty logical.
I remember there was a day when Raul was in the library and he had his laptop open and he was working on his laptop and tablet. And the first thought in my mind was like, oh, this guy's got a tablet. Like, I have a tablet. Like, I don't know anyone else that has a tablet. Everyone else here is doing charcoal and pencil drawings and stuff. Like, this guy, like, he knows what's up. And I looked over his shoulder and he was doing a bust of some portrait demon something rather. And I was like, how have I never seen this guy? Like, he's not in any of my classes. Who is this dude? And I walked right out of the library. I didn't go up. I didn't say hi. I didn't do that. I think I had that same feeling of intimidation that Zach was talking about. And I think Raul's right. I don't think it was until landscape class that I started to see, like, you know, I don't know, I guess what he was all about. And then same with Zach. I didn't know. The only thing I knew about Zach was he had done a badass, like, pastel life drawing that was hung up on the wall of one of the models. And it was one that you said, Zach, later got jacked. Like, someone ripped that off the wall.
Now in my studio.
Damn it, Grant.
But that's what I associated that image with Zach's name, and it wasn't until one of our digital illustration classes at the very end of you know, my school curriculum, all that stuff, senior year, that I started to see that, oh, he was getting into digital too. Like, you know, the digital stuff came really late for us, and so I think that was part of the reason why it took me so long to figure out, like, who was doing it and who was not, who was interested in the same things I was and who was not. And like Raul said, just staying in shore, sticking around late at night. That's how I started talking with, you know, you guys know John Baker. Like, same thing. Like, he was one of those guys that would, you know, stay up until all hours of the morning working on stuff. And you're right. That's kind of how those. I don't know. That's how that communication really started. Was the late nights in shore. You know, there are all these things that led up to those nights in the shore building for me.
Yeah. Because, like, to be honest, like, looking back on all that stuff, like, I don't think I ever, like, walked up to somebody and, like, introduced myself. Like, you know, I was just too, like, scared. Like, everything that you know, anybody who approached me or who actually ended up talking to me, they were talking to me because, you know, they were just interested in what I was doing, and that's how conversations, you know, kind of sprung up. Cause like, I remember, like, one of the first people who ever, you know, approached me was, like, I was in a class called, I think it was illustration media, and I was working on this, like, raptor sculpture, and I would just carry it around, like, all day, because I didn't have any place to put it, and it was just, like, in this little, like, Tupperware box. But one of the first guys to come up to me and actually talk to me was Victor, and he was just curious about, you know, what I was doing with my with that raptor, like, what was going on with it. So you know, and that was actually probably one of the first, you know, friendships I made. And Victor had started. I think it was the summer before I started, so he was a little bit more, you know, used to the campus. He knew, you know, pretty much what was going on by then, and then, like I said about the landscape painting class, he was also in that class, and he was staying late, working on his paintings and doing his homework, and I was like, well, why am I driving back and forth from my dorm room or whatever to do homework? You know, I can just do it here and you know, stay hanging out with these people. So I was hanging out with Vic, you know, doing homework, and then Vic knew John. John came in and started doing homework, and then Dylan popped in too. So it was like all four of us just in shore, and it just became like a regular thing. You know, pretty much every night we were there till like 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes even longer. Sometimes we didn't even go home.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
I think I only did that like once or twice.
Yeah.
It's funny you're saying that, Rolf, because that's about like whenever y'all had that whole group going, is when I slowly started getting into digital, and we graduated together actually, and I don't think we said any words to each other until like our last like 2 semesters. It was before we started talking, and that's when I kind of stumbled, and I think it was John Baker because we had a few classes in like illustration media or something, and then I kind of stumbled on the group and that y'all were working late. And I still didn't talk to you because you were always in the zone, you know. You had the double hoodie, you had the headset, you walked in, sat down, boom, zoned in, busted a workout. I was like, oh shit, what am I doing? I got like my sketchbook and I'm like looking blankly at the screen. I look over and it's like, bow, down, bow. And then it took me a while because I was like, man, this guy's, I don't want to fucking talk to that dude. He's serious. It seems a little standoff. And then I actually, I was like, it's, my nature kind of overwhelmed my curiosity, kind of like what you're saying. And then that's how, we were able to build a little friendship there. It was just like, hey, Raul, can you, how the fuck are you doing this? What is this stylus? And why are you writing on the computer? Kind of deal. And then that's how I kind of got into the shore with John and then Emily. And that was all of our our graduating semester, and that's when I realized how far behind, how much headway I needed to make in like 3 months, and that's kind of started like the 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. sort of deal for me. But up until that point, I was just kind of doing minimal stuff. I was doing, I thought I was doing good because I was getting A's in my classes, but that's not gonna get you anywhere. As far as jobs go, it's like, whatever you do as a student in your work, you think that's going to be your gold mine portfolio when you graduate, but that's not the case. And it took me a while to realize that until the last semester. And then I started realizing that I was going for it, because you were interning at that point, and I didn't know about Direwolf Digital at that point until talking to you, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. That sounds like exactly what I want to do, digitally and fantasy and all that stuff. And so then I kind of threw together a portfolio kind of geared towards that and trying my best to learn digital and the Photoshop stuff.
The Photoshop. Well, that's a good way to transition into probably the next point where these networks started to become more solidified and more important was Dyer and the internship.
Mm-hmm.
And
we all
who was it?
Earned at one point.
Yeah, that was we all interned there, and Dylan. There's only 4 people in here, and I already named 2 of them. Raul was the first person to intern there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even from RimCAD, I think.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. You were the first intern that Dyer, I think, ever took on, right? That wasn't just RimCAD or anything. That was just period. First art intern that they ever accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember when that started. I remember because there was a handful of us that were kind of applying for that, and I remember sitting next to you the night that you got the email, and you read that off and said, "I got the internship."
And you
jumped out of your chair. It was like, "Oh my god, this guy's making moves."
You guys want to know something? I think I thought that everybody was doing this because I didn't really understand how the interview thing went. But I think I was actually the first student that, I remember Roger touring the campus and stuff, and I sat in there with Susan Stites and him and talked with him about the internship, and then I heard about how I think he was a janitor for a while and doing drawings and stuff, but he was our AD there. But anyway, I think I was one of the first people to learn about that, but I didn't get the internship that year, and I didn't get the internship for another 2 years or something. But that's funny. We all at some point had, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Sorry.
Yeah.
You were interning there for a while, right, Raul?
Yeah. So just to start from, I guess, the beginning of that whole thing is I internship I think that was like either towards the end of sophomore year and the beginning of my junior year, I think. But like an internship initially wasn't like really it initially wasn't even really on my radar. Like I didn't plan on taking an internship. I didn't know that, you know, I didn't really know if it was going to be I just didn't know what it was about, basically. I didn't know that I wanted or needed one. But like, and I don't think I heard about it through the like career and alumni services or anything, at least not initially. I think I actually heard about it through Dylan and maybe a couple other people who were talking about it. Like, I think you guys were talking about how you wanted to apply, and then I think I probably just overheard, or you might have mentioned it to me, and that's when it really kind of started turning around in my head, because that's the point where, I mean, and I don't know how it was for you guys, but like the beginning of my junior year, that's when I really started to think about like, man, I'm gonna graduate here soon, and what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, I was kind of starting to feel just kind of questioning myself, like, am I where I need to be? You know, all those kinds of questions just running through your head. And more the internship started to appeal to me in the sense that it was like it's like I guess like a trial run, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Like, that's a place where, because bottom line, like an internship is like it's a learning experience. So it's like a place where you can go, or an experience you can have where you're able to make mistakes, and you're able to learn your way through. Whereas, not that you're not able to do that if you just, graduated and then got a job. But it's a little bit more forgiving, I think. Does that make sense?
For sure.
So that's where it started to appeal to me, and I just started, thinking that might be something I want to do. So yeah, I just put my portfolio together, and I worked with career and alumni services to kind of get like just because I know they had talked to them, and I got a better idea of what the studio was looking for, and they helped me put together like a resume and cover letter, like that kind of stuff. But so yeah, I just got together my portfolio and then I sent it in, and took a couple weeks, and then I got an email back, and they said they wanted to do a phone interview, and they were asking for a date and time that I could do the phone interview, and I said yeah. We scheduled a time, and I did the phone interview, and after the phone interview, I thought I completely like bombed it. Like, I was like, I said everything wrong that I could possibly say. I was like, these guys aren't gonna call me back, or like, I was like, that's the end of it, because I knew.
Before it began, it's over. We're over. The state of depression went to wind chills.
Yeah.
So and on top of that, like I learned later that maybe like a couple days later that another friend of mine got a phone interview, and he actually got like a art test, like he was doing an art test, and I was like, oh, I didn't even get that far, so they're definitely not gonna call me back. So I kind of just like I gave up all hope.
You abandoned.
Yeah.
Abandoned all hope.
And it was, and another couple weeks go by, and then they sent me another email, and this time they wanted a face-to-face interview, so I'd actually get to go into the studio and meet with the art director and talk it over, and that was pretty cool, because we actually went over my portfolio, and they kind of talked to me about what initially caught their eye, and it was and you can still see this in like my DeviantArt gallery and stuff. It's this dragon image. It's like this dragon rider person. And what was cool about that is that was actually like a group challenge that me, Dylan, and John and Victor did.
Oh, was it a conceptart.org one?
No, it was like we were like all hanging out at a friend. I think it was John's place. We were like all playing video games, and I think we started talking about Spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
And Spectrum's submission dates were like coming up there. I think they were like in January or like early February, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, we should all try and get something in there, just to try. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. And so we were just like, oh yeah, we should all try and do something for this and kind of like hold each other to this deadline and try and get something done. So that dragon image that they actually kind of caught Direwolf's eye, and it wasn't necessarily the idea of the image or anything like that, because I mean it's a dragon. Yeah, another person riding a dragon. It's like, but what caught their eye about it was the execution, I guess, and it was the quality. It was basically the quality that they were looking for. So I don't know. I just wanted to mention that because that was something that came about because of like a group motivation
right.
type of thing.
Definitely.
Didn't that originally start as an oil painting?
Oh no, man! Like, well, it started as a project I was doing for an oil painting class.
Right. It was like a live painting too, right, or something.
Yeah.
Somehow you snuck a giant fucking T-Rex and with a little tiny figure.
So I was like, yeah, that's what I was gonna do. I like wanted to paint it in oil and then submit it to Spectrum, but I was like, oh man, this is gonna take forever, but I still needed to complete it for that class. And what I ended up doing was like, I'm just gonna do this digitally to submit to Spectrum, and then I'll just do it again in oil to submit to the instructor. So I ended up painting it twice, which was interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You landed the internship.
Yeah.
And you were then you interned. It wasn't quite a full year though, was it? It was like, was it three semesters or was it a full year?
It was a summer. I started over summer, and that's like 12 weeks. So like 3 months, and then I did 2 like regular terms, which were like 15 weeks. So it was a little over like 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask before we get too far is, how did you hear about the internship? I don't remember. Like, I know how I heard about it.
Yeah.
Which I think we'll get to later, but how did you originally hear about it?
I think I just heard about it through like word of mouth.
Okay.
I think I probably heard about it from a few of the guys talking about it and saying they were gonna apply.
Sweet. Okay, I didn't think it was anything more than that, but if it was, I thought it would be important given our theme.
Real quick, did anyone else have any like terrifying moments during the interview? Because Raul, you brought that up, and I was just kind of curious because I had one incident in which I completely thought I tanked. But I was wondering if Zach or Dylan, if y'all had any moments of like, I just put my foot in my mouth. The whole interview process, because mine was in person. Was y'all's in person or?
Mine was in person.
Yeah, I had in person.
I had my moment.
Yeah.
I remember. Go ahead, Zach. What was yours?
Well, okay. I just want to make sure we don't miss the whole structure of how each of us got into the internship. But anyway, when I did finally get my interview, I was working at Starbucks at the time and like going to school, but I was completely willing to like just give up working at Starbucks to like intern there. And that was like, I still believed that like internships led to jobs. Like I was convinced, like I don't understand how I thought that there was that much concept art that needed to be done in the world, but I thought that like you know, like Raul had an internship and he's gonna get a job. Like Dylan had an internship, and like he's gonna like work for them. But it didn't. That wasn't. I don't know. That wasn't the case. And they were like, okay, hold on, like you should keep your job at Starbucks. Like you still want to be making like real money. And I was like, oh, it's okay. And I ended up even doing like I don't know, crazy hours. But I remember afterwards, I was like, oh my God, I sounded so desperate for this internship. And that like I was like, they're not gonna hire me. It was intimidating. All those guys are intimidating.
Yeah, yeah. And with all your work showing up on this giant screen.
Yeah.
Dylan, did you have anything where you?
Yeah. Well, it's weird like what Zach was saying, the intimidation factor, because like we do critique over in school, but I think by the time you're a senior, like you've critiqued with a lot of the same people for X number of years, so there's I still think there's a little level of comfort that comes with that. But to show, for me anyway, to show my stuff to a professional, in a studio setting for the first time, that was nerve-wracking. That was really nerve-wracking. I remember I kept saying, they would ask me to describe an image. What was I thinking when I was going over this, or what was my thought process behind that. And I would, try and fumble through explaining it or something. And I always say, like, yeah, so it was, in the end, it was all very interesting. It was interesting. I kept saying interesting. Like, I didn't say it was a good experience. I didn't say it was a great learning, time. I just said it was interesting. And I remember the lead artist at the studio at the time. I had been doing some research on him just to get a feel for, the level of talent that they were hiring. And I had seen one of his images in a exotic or expose. It was one of those ballistic publishing books. And I brought that up in the interview. I was like, oh, I saw one of your pieces in ballistic. I thought it was really interesting. And that's when the art director brought up. He's like, you say the word interesting a lot. What do you mean by that? And I don't know what I said to this day. I think I just blacked out. I have no idea what I said. I fumbled off some explanation that made no sense.
That's so funny.
And then that was kind of it. They asked me if I had any questions for the studio, and I asked a few things here and there, but that was pretty much it. When I walked out of there, I was like, I didn't get it. There's no way.
There is no reason my interview should have gone bad, because like the day before, I think me, Raul, and we're hanging out somewhere, and I think Raul was hired at this point, and I was going for the internship, and I was just like picking his brain, like just freaking out, asking him every question I could. All right, what are they gonna ask me? And he pretty much like laid out exactly. They're gonna ask you this. This is what you need to say. Like just like baby steps on how to do a good job, and then I get there. And I don't know, I think I just freaked out and didn't do anything of the sort. And I just remember there was, oh man, what happened? They were asking me on like, what can you offer? And then
there's a question.
Sputtering out all this nonsense, and I think I can bring my own personal style into your audience. And they're like, they just come here. No, we have our style. We need you to match our style. And then I was like, oh.
Yeah, and you were like, oh yeah, I can definitely.
I'm really good at doing other people. I have no style. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm terrible.
Our teachers actually tell us all the time that, like, don't worry about finding a style.
So that was my moment of like one job. I had one thing to say. Yes, sir. No, sir. Grayscale glazed color with soft light layer.
How high, sir?
And put everything in a triangle composition. Big swords, and then that was it. And then I spiraled out of control. But
oh man.
But anyway, I didn't mean to tangent completely. I was just kind of interested, amused. If anyone else had any idiotic moments throughout it, I don't even know where we're going anymore.
Well, I remember because Raul had his internship, and he had it. I think you had finished. I can't remember if you had started your second term. You'd been there for at least one, I'm pretty sure. You'd finished off your first semester there. And then I remember getting a call, it was a text or a call from you, I can't remember. And you had said that the art director had dropped my business card on your desk and like had asked who I was or something.
Yeah.
And like later that afternoon, I think I got an email from Career Services that said the AD was kind of walking through the grad show and kind of took notice of my stuff. And I was kind of elated when I heard that because I had applied for the internship the same time that you and a couple other of our friends from RIMCAT had. So when you had got that internship and, you know, you had the phone interview and you know, people were getting art tests and stuff like that, and I was getting nothing. I was like, oh my God, it'll never happen. It will never happen. Like, it
Go
just,
to Winchell's.
just get a gallon of coffee at Winchell's and drown myself in caffeine. Like, it was never gonna happen. So when I started getting those heads up, I was like, where's this coming from? This is what is that? And yeah, I think Career Services had said, you know, the AD was interested. You know, can I put together a body of work and get my cover letter taken care of, and she would send it off. And that's kind of how that started. I think I got called in like a week later for my on-site interview, where everything.
You didn't get it until you graduated, right?
I had just graduated. Yeah, I had just graduated. So it was my grad show that was up at the time. Yeah, that was it. That was definitely it. And then
you graduated before me too, right, Dylan? You graduated spring of 2011.
I was summer of 2000.
Okay, cool.
I was summer. You weren't spring 2011.
Nah, I was fall.
Yeah, I was summer of 2011. It was, I think, early August of that year. And then yeah, Raul and I were interning alongside each other until December. I think it was like the first or second week in December, before that finished up. And that's when I remember the AD was saying that I overheard him say something about, like, you know, we're trying to find a new intern, or we haven't found an intern yet, or something like that. And I had remembered remembered your story, Zach, that you had applied, you know, once or twice beforehand. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like told him, I was like, well, I know someone that's been trying to, like, you know, grab this. I know someone that's been trying to do this for a while now. Like, you know, I can send you his portfolio. And he said, yeah, come on, send that on over. And I think I immediately, like, took out my phone and texted you, Zach. I was like, is your shit up to date? Like, is your portfolio together?
Yeah, I remember that. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember getting that text and being like, yeah, send them to my, no, my website's not up. Send them to my blog or something like that, and quickly put shit up on there. But yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, because I think that we almost, like, just flew right past that. But, like, you know, there's a definite chain from, like, being friends at school and being familiar with each other's work to, like, Raul getting the internship, and then, you know, setting up Dylan, and then Dylan setting up me, and Grant having
Raul.
Yeah.
Set up through Raul. I think he, like, name dropped me, and then, like, guided them to my grad show, and then I was able to grab a hand, and then, like, it was pretty much word of mouth through Raul.
Yeah.
The only reason I wiggled my way into there with my amazing. It wasn't the quality of my work. I don't think it was. it was enough to get in there, I guess. But definitely, I think Raul, you helped me out a lot on that.
Well, I mean, all I did was introduce you to the AD. You know, at our
just
grad
hard
show.
and good looks from my end. I think I did it. Just pulled me through.
Yeah, I introduced Grant, and I think a couple other people that graduated with us, and that's when that's because they had asked me to come on, you know, full time, like a couple weeks before then. And then I had the grad show, and then I had a week, like a break, and then I started I started on as their junior illustrator, and that was, yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. And there's all the proof you need of hard work pays off, because me and Raul graduated together, and Raul was started full time there when I was interning there, and then that's how I got in there. And then Raul, you were actually overseeing me on throughout my internship. Like, you kind of took over the interns as far as like critique and like, this is what you need to do to do this.
Yeah, you actually oversaw me too for a little bit. I remember at least coming to you for advice and or direction.
That was the same with me. Yeah.
Towards the end of the internship, I remember showing Dylan. I remember showing you like once, like color stuff, and I remember helping out Zach a couple times.
Just holding my hand throughout the entire process. Please, sir. Please, sir. Can I learn some more?
But slowly, they just allowed me to have more, responsibilities, as far as like the interns go. I mean, because, I think there's several things that I thought, went into that. One is I was an intern for 9 months, so I knew how the internship worked. I knew how I'd been working with the art director and the lead illustrator for a while. I knew how the things they were looking for, and I'm not sure if they knew that I had like mentoring, like tutor, type experience, because one of the experiences that actually kind of prepped me for taking on those I guess responsibilities was I was a tutor person at the learning center, and I was tutoring people on art history stuff, and painting, drawing, Photoshop, all that stuff. And on top of that, I was leading labs that went along with the art history stuff. And basically what that was it was kind of like a mini class. So I was like a mini instructor, and I was like, I had to make my own syllabus for the labs. I had to follow along, make sure I knew everything that the students were learning. I had to sit in on their classes. And then, it was just like a big kind of like a big study session that I had to lead. So it was definitely, I'm really grateful that I had that experience. Otherwise, I think I would have been, a lot more lost when I got to actually working. And I'm not sure if they knew that or not, and maybe that might have been a factor as to why they allowed me to have those responsibilities. But
that's cool. Did you put that on your resume?
I did, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like then? Transitioning from intern to junior artist, and at the same time now being sort of a mentor for incoming interns.
And you were mentoring. It wasn't just me. You also had two other people. Like, it was also Alex and John, because we all got the internship together. So you went from that to like managing three other people basically.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely interesting, and I didn't do it like all by myself. Like, I still had my art lead there, and he was helping me out with stuff, and Roger, the art director, was helping me out with stuff. So it wasn't like, thankfully they didn't just like just like here you go,
Yeah.
But it was definitely interesting. I think the most difficult part of it was it's like, it's one thing to like sit at your desk and paint and just do whatever you normally do. But it's another thing to try and explain to somebody else what you're doing and how to your thought process on the whole thing. It's a crazy, like, at least for me, it was a crazy, like, synthesizing of everything, and it kind of made me kind of question a lot of things about what I'd been doing up to that point. Because I mean, you sit down and you start trying to show somebody how you think through something, but you've never been asked that question before. So you're trying to kind of it feels like, for me, it felt like I was fumbling through trying to explain what's going on in my head when there's so much stuff going on when I'm painting. It was just trying to communicate, all that stuff, trying to figure out where you sit on it, and how to clearly show somebody and give them steps to follow is really, really tough.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. Would you say you learned a lot from that, just that, like, role reverse? Because it's one thing, like you're saying, to like sit down and do it, but then you have to like think about it, and in your own mind, it's kind of like relearning it for yourself, like going up through your own tools and like really thinking about what you're doing in order to explain to people like me, like, this is how you're doing this wrong, but you never just said like, this is wrong. You always provided like examples and like dumbed it down for me, because I was still like fumbling my way through Photoshop at this point.
God, I was too, dude, during the internship. Like I had all my experience with Photoshop had been from that year.
Yeah, I was the same way. So whatever you thought, Raul, you did a pretty damn good job, and I was very appreciative, because I know I was not the easiest person to like break it down for. So I still remember to this day, like on one particular piece I was working on, it was like this forest scene or something, just like an environment or something. And you came by, you gave me some good feedback, whatever, and then I started working. And then you came back, like, and you're all right, blocking all this stuff, you just got to build it up all together, this and that. And then you come back, I think like 2 hours later, and I think I'm like zoomed in at like 200% or something. I'm rendering like specular highlights on a fucking mushroom or something. I have like a 3/4 unfinished painting. I'm just like rendering the shit out of this little mushroom in like this tiny corner of the composition. I'm like, oh yeah, this is looking good. And then I look up and I was like, oh shit, Raul's behind me. You're like shaking your head.
It's amazing how long it took to understand that idea. Like
the detail?
The detail idea.
Yeah. I'm sure that took a lot of patience. I can imagine what was going through your head right then. You're like, oh. Just like slap me on the wrist. Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like an interesting, like, you kind of, well, at least for me, like, I found myself like having to like revisit everything I learned up until that point, like literally everything, like from the point I started picking up a stylus to do digital painting. I like revisited all those tutorials. I like rewatched all the Feng Zhu tutorials, pretty much everything I had seen up until that point. And I was trying to pick out what was now incorporated into my own workflow and why I picked that whatever technique out, and how I was using it and how I was thinking about it. That way I could clearly, as clearly and concisely as I could, translate it over to somebody else in such a way that they would be able to take, steps to, follow it. You know what I mean? And it was in that process, you're kind of you're like you were saying, Grant, like you are reteaching yourself, and you're getting to know more about yourself, like as an artist. That's where like things really started to solidify for me, as far as like I started to learn who I was, as an artist, why I painted the way I painted, why I thought the way I thought. It was part of like developing like my own philosophy on painting and design and workflow and stuff like that. And I'm still going through that. I think that's an ongoing process, but it was definitely, I had never thought about it to that point. You know what I mean?
That's pretty cool.
And yeah, like when you have to explain it to somebody else, like it makes you understand, 10 times more what you're doing for yourself, and it makes you better in that, in that respect.
That's a whole other ball game in itself. Like, doing is one thing, but trying to share those ideas with someone else is, I got crazy respect for people who are actually good at that, because not everyone has that skill set to be able to share those ideas. That's something that I've always had a hard time with, like later down the road, like giving critique to friends and stuff. It's really hard for me to like put into words, like why that's wrong or why this is right in my mind, because it still brings up all those questions. You're just like, no, you just do the thing. Like, don't just do it.
Yeah, just do the art.
Do it. Like, put the color there. That's how I critique. Just fucking do it.
It's very frustrating, just so you know, being on the receiving end of some of your quote-unquote critiques.
No, Zach, just like, this is pretty good, but you're not doing that one thing with the stuff.
It doesn't, yeah.
Just revisit that, So that's, I completely sympathize with that and have mad respect.
So then I'm curious too, because I kind of have my own I don't know, my own feelings, learning from Raul once I started back as a contract guy. Like, it was interesting for me, just because we would do group projects in school. Grant, you were a part of that too at one point when we had our project with Raul, you, me, John, and Tony.
Yeah.
And so to be in a setting where it's kind of informal, like we get together when there's time and we try and hash out these ideas and these designs and blah blah blah. Like, it's a more casual experience, I guess. Whereas you get into a studio and, like, for me, I don't know what it was, but I felt like there was a switch that was kind of flipped, and it's like, okay, now you're in professional mode. Like, keep your head down, do your work, accept critique, stuff like that. Like, what did you guys feel? How did that change for you? Critiques that were happening kind of in school, and then to be getting critiqued by one of your former classmates, now your supervisor, in a professional setting. Like, how did that change the way you worked, or did it? Was it just as natural as it was before? I mean, what was that experience for you guys?
Well, for me, because I graduated for all, so we were on the same grade. We both graduated, and then automatically I'm like working directly under Raul. But I've never had an ego with my work, and I knew that I had a bunch to learn. At that point I had a complete understanding of the level I was at and where I needed to go. So it was just a matter of like switching into sponge mode. For me, I was just soaking it in, just trying my best not to jack it up, and just allow the information and just be open to everything. And I think the hardest part for me was letting go of stuff. I think was the hardest part. You get really attached to your work.
Yeah.
And that's something you can't do as an artist. Like, you have to, because you'll be like, oh, this one finger on this jacked up hand is really good, so you like leave it and you try to work the other fingers around it, when you should have just swiped it from the beginning. Like, the whole gesture of it is terrible. Forget about your one greatly painted, in your mind finger, and rework the thing and just paint that finger again, except better, and just being able to let go of that stuff. And that was my main thing that I really learned, I think, from that internship, was being able to, and that took the entire time. And that's something I still struggle with, just kind of like, all right, whatever, I'll just friggin' repaint the damn hand. Like, this is obviously not working, and I have to catch myself with that. So I think that was the hardest part for me. But other than that, it was just kind of, putting myself in a position to learn everything I could because, it was an opportunity, and I tried my best to take advantage of that while I was there.
Yeah, I don't think because Raul, I wasn't, you helped me a bit, and you had given me some guidance. I think early on, you were guiding me a lot as we were getting everything set up, but I actually, I would have been fine working with Raul because I knew you. I probably wouldn't have worked as hard, but I did. One of the thing that challenged me the most was kind of getting used to how the studio operated. I don't think I had any difficulties with working with Raul. I think it was neat actually because I saw how much I'd always thought you were the shit and your monsters and stuff were awesome. So I had nothing but respect for you.
Yeah, it kind of worked out in the end because I wasn't afraid to ask Raul stupid questions. Like if I was working directly under the art director or lead illustrator on what the hell a soft light layer was or something like that, I probably would have got the boot immediately. But then I could just be like, "Hey, Raul,
yeah,
what does opacity mean? What are brushes?" So it was in that regard, it was a lot. It was less stressful, and it was less terrifying to be the idiot in the corner.
Well, actually, what would be really neat to know is, Raul, what was it like for you? Was it really annoying, or?
Yeah, like tugging on your sleeve.
No, for me,
what you're doing.
No, for me it wasn't annoying at all. I think that I've always kind of liked helping people in that way. I just like sharing stuff with people. And for me, I've always wanted to be kind of an instructor, I guess. That's one of my goals, in the future. I do eventually. I would like to teach, in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's I find it to be just really rewarding because, like I said, you learn just as much, teaching as you do, being taught. You learn just as much. So anytime I get to learn, something, it's cool with me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think the hardest part of that transition was just, just figuring out what I needed to say, how to communicate, and also there's a realization that you have when you're mentoring somebody, and that's something that I wish, I don't know, I wish people would think a little bit more about when they're putting out tutorials and stuff online. Just being careful is that your student or your whoever you're mentoring, they are going to be influenced by you, and you want to be careful about what you show them and when you show them. You know what I mean? And especially with Photoshop, because there's so many little tips and tricks and different ways of doing stuff in Photoshop, that I think sometimes if you show somebody a trick or a shortcut for something before they're ready for it, I think you can really damage that person.
That kind of becomes a crutch.
Yeah, you can damage that person's skill set because you didn't let them kind of power through it. You didn't let them power through the problem. And just let them kind of you can definitely guide them, kind of give them when they're struggling, help them out, but yeah, I just think you got to be careful. I compare it to I call it giving somebody the calculator. I don't know, when I was learning math in school, I remember being kind of excited to use my calculator, and we were just starting to learn math, and I whip out this calculator and start punching in my numbers, and my teacher comes up to me. He's like, no, you got to put that away. We're gonna do this, pencil and paper. We're not gonna use the calculator right now. And I remember being kind of mad at him for doing that, because I was like, why not let me use the calculator? It's so easy. I can just punch the numbers in and I get the answer right. You know what I mean? And this other way is just slow and hard, and it's not as fast. But I understand why they do that, because if you gave somebody a calculator to begin with, there's no motivation to go around and learn things the hard way. You know what I mean? And then when a time comes when that calculator gets taken away from them, well, now they're pretty much
helpless. Yeah.
Yeah, they're helpless. So.
And I wish I would have gone to your school for math. We got those high-tech calculators, but right off the bat. But even then, I wasn't even using. I was just thrilled because they were like these crazy, huge, like the T50 9900 thousands or whatever. And I was just like typing boobs, the word boobs with the numbers. I thought that was the best thing ever, and that was my experience in pre-cal. I think that's about as far as I got in math. It was just spilling, and I thought that was my greatest accomplishment. High school math, and then comes like tax season, and I'm like, boobs. I'd spill boobs again. Then like Googling how to find a percentage like an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to be clear that what you mean is that you lack the you neglect or you miss the understanding that's behind it. So showing people hey, if you make this brush of a building, you won't have to paint the building. It's
stamp it.
You kind of miss, I'm all for those shortcuts when you understand why they work.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And then you miss that. There's been so many things, all my progress in painting, we were talking about this earlier, is has not been oh, now my painting muscles are bigger. It's really just I'm smarter about painting. I'm the same painter, and my skills have not, they're the same skills. I'm just using them more effectively because of an understanding.
Yeah, and that's where that realization was I was oh my gosh, I could really mess somebody up right now. You know what I mean? And that's just a big responsibility that I feel you as a mentor, or even if you're going and posting videos, tutorial videos up on YouTube, I really wish people would just have a little disclaimer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Hey, I'm gonna show you this quick trick right now, but you should really think about, you should not use this until you learn this, and this. You know what I mean? And that's kind of one of the things I learned about that.
Liquify tool. That's still a huge crutch for me. Whenever I learned that tool, it was game over for me.
Let me tell you about my best friend.
These things. I can just move the pixels into place. I'm using the hell out of that thing. I love it and hate it, but mostly I love it.
Oh, man.
So prime example of how not to be influenced by shit before you learn it, right there. Be careful. Disclaimer. Be careful of the liquify tool. Repaint the fucking thing. Don't sit there for 2 hours smudging shit around until you get that finger and the rest of the hand just right, because you don't want to erase that finger in that jacked up hand.
Yeah, and getting back to kind of what Dylan was talking about the difference between switching into professional mode. I think what I think about is working in video games is fun. Doing illustrations for a living is fun. You want that to be fun, and on top of that, you get to work with some really cool people, and on top of that, those cool people can happen to be, you know, your friends, right? And that's fun as well. But you have to like, I think it's okay to have fun, but you have to understand like at what point do you say, okay, now we got to get down, you know, to business, and because we actually, you know, as employees in a company, you each have your own separate duties that you need to make sure you're doing, you know, throughout the day. You each have tasks that you need to do, and you got people relying on those tasks to be completed, and you got to know when to like, just when to, you know, hunker down and, you know, get work done. Doesn't mean it's not fun. You just gotta do what you gotta do.
Just do the damn thing. Quit taking breaks, Grant. Quit going to the lounge and getting a Snickers bar. Paint something. Painted for an hour and you've been gone for 30 minutes. It doesn't take 30 minutes to get a Snickers. I'm so claustrophobic in that place. Like, there's no lights. We were in a freaking cellar.
Well, I think
starved.
I think that was a good transition into like, you know, following the networking theme. What happened next for some of us was like, you know, after the internship, I think Dylan, you stayed on for a little while.
There was a break there. My internship ended in December, like I said, December of 2011, and then I didn't come back until August of 2012. And then I was a contract employee from August 2012 to like early January 2013. And then from January, that's when I started freelance. And I think that was around the same time that Grant and Zach, you guys were doing the same thing. It was around January last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was, I think, I agree. I think that, you know, that's a good transition, because that sort of, that mindset of being in professional mode or whatever, when you're in your apartment or in your bedroom or wherever you are, and you don't have an art director or lead artist or a mentor or whoever, you don't have anyone breathing down your neck. You're now like in control of your own environment, setting your own hours and that kind of stuff. I think that mindset was kind of imperative. Like you had to sort of sink or swim once you got into that freelance position. And on top of that, you're maintaining that communication between yourself and the art director or whoever it is that you're reporting to on those images. So that whole professionalism, and again, that idea of working relationship is critical when you get into the freelancing world. Like, I feel like you're forced to experience that when you're in a studio setting, because you're physically sitting next to people. You know what I mean? Like, you have to talk to them. And when you get into the freelance world, like, keeping those lines of communication open while you're emailing back and forth, waiting for you know, work in progress shots or revisions or feedback or whatever, is totally important. Totally. And I think that's something that I had to learn, because I was officially kind of in my full-time freelance position in January of last year. It's been just over a year now that I've been like full-time freelance. That was a adjustment for me. You know, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah.
Because we were still tied in with Dyer at that point. We were still working with Dyer.
Yeah, that's when we first started freelancing for them. We weren't interning there; we were getting freelance work.
Right.
Yeah, that was a crazy transition, because it's one thing. It's like one level going from student to intern, and then it's a whole nother game going from intern to freelancing. You know, I didn't have Raul or the art director like holding my hand, doing these images. You know, sitting over my shoulder like.
Oh.
Did he cut out?
He cut out for a bit.
Oh.
You cut out for a bit. Can you say that again?
Oh, where did I cut out at? Just the whole thing?
You didn't have the art director over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't have like the art director or, you know, Raul like holding my hand through the entire process. Like, I had to figure that stuff out and motivate myself. I didn't have them over my shoulder, like making sure I was working. I had to do that, figure out a time schedule and sit down, do the work, send it off. Like, I didn't have them throughout the whole process, and then wait for feedback. and then just realized after that it was too late after I sent it that it was just all jacked up, and I was struggling.
Yeah, it was pretty tough to do that on your own, and to be like, really understand. Like I think it took a couple images. Like the first thing that sits over you is like like you're like, oh, I'm getting work now. Like this is awesome. But then being in charge of like, like your profit, your business at that point, and like realizing how many images you need to get done a week, and to make like something livable. And I was in New York City at the time, so like I was really trying to hustle to get enough work done a week to live off of. But another, like coming back to the theme, one thing that we always, one thing that we maintained throughout all this was this web of like connections and friends, and we figured this, like most of us figured this all out together.
I think I agree. I think that's kind of around the same time that the Google Hangouts really started.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we were, for a while there, we were sort of working in isolation, and maybe we shot emails back and forth between one another. But I think the Hangouts are really what kept us sort of connected and able to critique each other on the fly and check up on one another as we were going through this whole new experience together.
Yeah.
And that was something that I leaned heavily on.
And
I feel like I still do. I still feel like I do that. I feel like you have this sort of pseudo experience of being around people in those Hangouts. It's almost like you've set up a virtual studio for the most part. You can get feedback. You can I don't know, communicate and not feel like you're a hermit living in a hole, creating artwork in a cave.
which is realistically what you are.
Which is, in reality, is exactly what you're doing.
What's happening. I just voices, hear the voices, but I'm still in my hole, and it keeps me sane.
Exactly.
But yeah, dude, that was a huge deal for me, because that was like my first time dealing with like failure, that I might not be able to do this, because my first images when I started freelancing, I thought I had it in the bag, so I interned there, I knew what was up, I was cocky, and then I sent them off, and I was just, they just weren't hitting the level, like the style wasn't there, and I just couldn't wrap my head around what it was that I was doing wrong. And that's like with the Hangouts and getting feedback from you guys, that kind of kept me like learning, and like, okay, this is what and y'all's feedback like helped me out tremendously, because I was just not getting it there for like the first half of that stint freelancing with Dyer. So that was like a savior thing for me, because I still needed that help basically, and that was the realization there, which was terrifying, because that's like your income. Now, I mean, I was still like working retail in there to get by, but I knew if I didn't have that, then I'd be looking for other work that wasn't art related at all.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that was I quit. I mean, there were many different factors which we won't go into, but around the time that we got those cards, I quit Starbucks. No, actually, it was before then. I quit Starbucks, and I was like living in New York like a ship with no sail, like wandering the ocean, just drifting around, and then picked up our project for Dyer, and I was able to like get that work pretty consistently, and then move on to Seattle. Somehow that related to what you said, Grant. I got lost again.
So Zach, like I have a quick question for you. So you finished your internship, because like at this point, after you guys finished your internship, that's kind of where I kind of dropped out. Like I wasn't on Google Hangouts or anything with you guys. This is actually the first time I'm ever doing a Google Hangout.
I think you've been in a couple. I thought.
I don't think so.
No.
Maybe a few Skype sessions, but
maybe. But So did you start getting freelance work like right after your internship finished, or was there a period of time in between then?
Opening up that old nutshell.
This is a good question. This is actually,
and then like what happened if there was a period of time between that? Like what happened between in that period of time that kind of and with the internship that helped you get back into the into that project?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I had been working. The Starbucks is important to note because I was working there slinging coffee before I started the internship, and then kept that up until I moved to New York. But right after school, or right after the internship, sorry, I remember kind of thinking like, oh, okay, it's just I just need to send my portfolio off and I'll get a job. Like I was looking at like Rockstar and shit and like thinking like, okay, cool, I'll just send them my stuff and it'll be a no-brainer. And that really didn't happen, and I just kind of moved down the list of options that I knew about from school, and I ended up getting like a couple like book cover jobs from Guru and like Elance, some just kind of like eBay of freelance work sort of things.
Yeah.
And I did some book covers, some like really awful book covers right after the internship, and then pretty much just spent like the rest of the time, like I stopped, I kind of fell off of it and was working on art kind of half-assedly. I bought a nice computer around that time and was like working on my skills really lazily, but mostly working at Starbucks. And then when I moved to New York, I was like, this is it, like here we go, and like I had all my soldiers lined up and we charged, and I was working on stuff and was kind of like losing some momentum until I got into the Hangouts with Dylan and all these guys, and that was really when I started to get like back into get like really started to push into art. Like that was when I wanted to move to New York so bad that like I did it. I went and I transferred with Starbucks and I did it. But when I finally started to get into the Hangouts and started to get serious about this and see that in this like entire year since the internship that I had done like nothing compared to what Dylan and all these guys like Crystal and whoever else was in the Hangouts, like when I looked at what I had gotten done compared to what they had gotten done, I was really like, oh my god, like it's either sink or swim, and that was really what got me into it. Got like finding a core group of people who were motivated. Did that answer your question? I kind of wandered.
No, yeah, that's cool.
Nailed it. And there's nothing more motivating than the fear of failure.
Especially when, like we talked about having somebody, like having, Raul being in a position of being our superior, but like when it's just like, seeing like your friends just kicking ass, like it hurts good, You're like, oh man, like I still feel the same kind of thing when one of you guys does something awesome, and I'm just like, now I have to be at least that good. So
it's like a friendly competitiveness. Mm-hmm. We're all kind of learning together. Because I feel the exact same way. It's super inspiring whenever y'all just like, because you can kind of see transition. Because we're always sharing each other work, getting critique, and then every once in a while, like one of y'all will like just fucking break out with a next gen painting of what you were doing.
Yeah, that will kick you in the ass so hard to see someone that you're like. I would never come at it from a perspective of like you fully understand them. It's like, oh, you'll always know the level of quality they put out. It's not like that. It's like this. You think you know where they're at, and then they knock you on your ass with something. It's like, where the hell did that come from? Like, what did you eat this morning? Because you just like you pump something out that is above and beyond anything that I even thought was possible. That's like that's insane. Now I have to try that. Like, teach me. Like, it totally becomes that sponge moment that Grant was talking about. You know, and it does. It kind of, the group, I feel, kind of like rises together. You know, people share in each other's accomplishments. I think that's pretty cool.
And that's one thing all y'all are really awesome about is sharing. Like Raul, you're talking about earlier about, you know, you love to share, and then that's what's pushed me and able for me to grow is y'all's willingness to share with me what y'all learned, and vice versa, and being open. And I don't know if we went over that much, but kind of going back to, you know, the very, very early stages about finding like positive people to surround yourself with, because any level of friendship is awesome. Friends are great. But when you can find a group of friends who motivate each other and are, you know, or you can draw inspiration from, like those are the people that you want to surround yourself with, because it's just a positive thing, and that's what really, I think, in my mind, like helps you grow as, you know, an artist, is just being around like-minded people.
I think that's like that right there. Like you really hit the nail on the head there, because I mean we have even more examples of getting work through networks, but really the key is I think one of the keys of networking is like that is what motivates you, like being around like that group of people who you're like advancing up with is totally key.
Absolutely.
I mean, we could talk about those you know, networks really quickly, just to sort of drive in, or sorry, those connections, just to kind of drive the point home. I mean, after the dire work, I think we started finishing up the project. Dylan, one of your networks, actually, Dylan is sort of he's the center point for a lot of this.
Yeah. I was just coattailing.
We were a lot of us.
Grabbed hold and went for the freelancing ride. But,
I'm hoping I can pull some slack here now that I've got like some new things going on for me, but. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's weird because I felt like I was sort of transitioned into a freelancing position. I don't want to say against my will, but like it wasn't what I had on my radar. It wasn't something that I ever anticipated myself doing. Like freelancing in my eyes was something that someone who's worked in a studio or built a solid reputation for themselves over the years, has the connections, decides he or she just wants to do their own thing from home, and they have the means to do that. So to be kind of pushed into this freelancing role was really scary for me, and I think I used this term recently, and I had to kind of think about it, but I started calling it manufactured luck. Like you guys probably heard the same thing I did all the time. Like you'd hear about how people got these jobs or whatever, and they would say, "Oh, I just got lucky," or I was really lucky, and it was all luck, and blah blah blah. And to me, that made it sound like it was just one day you were walking down the street or something, and like an art director just kind of poked you in the shoulder, and you turned around and was like, "Hey, like, do you want this awesome, amazing job?" Like that's what like the luck sounded like to me, and I didn't realize that it's not really that. Like you sort of create your own luck. And the reason I say that is because the images that I was doing for my internship was for a Facebook game called Mystic Warlords of Ka'ah. And Raul and I were working on those illustrations, and I think, Zach, you had done some of those when you started, right? You were part of that for a little bit, I thought. Maybe not.
I'm not sure if I did that during the internship, but I didn't do that as freelance stuff.
Okay. During my internship, we had worked on these images, these illustrations, and a few months after my internship had ended, I think the project got canceled, so we got the green light to kind of start putting those up online. So I started putting, I don't know, a handful, maybe 6 or 7 of those illustrations of like the 30 that I did, but it was 6 and 7 of like the good ones. Everything else was I don't know how I made it through. We pretend like those don't exist. But like I put a few of those out online, and I put them up on DeviantArt, and I think they were floating up there for a week or two until I got a comment from somebody that said, "Hey, I worked on this game. Like, one of the characters I did was a foxling. That was the faction type." And he said, I was the guy that designed those foxlings. Like, my studio, like, that was our gig. We did that. That was our job with Warner Brothers before it got taken from us. And then I guess that's when the contract got sent over to Dyer, and they picked it up. So me and it's Gary Labe, if anyone knows who that is. He's awesome dude, awesome dude. But him and I started talking. We had this sort of mutual connection with this whole Mystic Warlords game, and a lot of the deadlines were rough on that game. Like, I don't know if I think I kind of hit the deadline like the last 2 weeks of my internship, but it was essentially a day. Like, it was you show up at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by the time you leave at 6, you have a finished illustration. And that was so insane compared to like what our deadlines were in school. Like, that, the concept of finishing a piece in 8 or 9 hours was mind-boggling. And that was my introduction to the industry. I just thought that's kind of how it was. But that's something that Gary and I started talking about. He said, "Oh, we had that same deadline. Like, it was nuts. It was hectic. It was crazy. There were some weeks when we didn't realize, we had no idea if we were gonna make our mark or not. It was too much. It was insane." So that was kind of our common ground from the get-go, was that game. And over the months, we just kept in communication. And Gary was actually the one that suggested the idea of doing the Hangouts. I was always on Skype prior to that. But he was the guy that said, "Hey, we should start doing these Hangouts because you can actually share your screen and everyone can see what everyone's working on and blah, blah, blah." And that's sort of when Gary and I started becoming more friends in the art world. And I got to see his accomplishments. He had won it was something for the new Hobbit movie. I think the Hobbit movie was coming out at the time, and he had won an award for one of those contests. And I think I was just cranking on my own personal stuff. At the time, I don't think I had even. I think I was still contract artist at Dyer, so I think I was an in-house guy at Dyer. And this would have been at the end of 2012. And then Gary wound up in his new position as the art director at a new company called DNA. And Gary had seen the stuff that that I had worked on with Mystic Warlords, and he had seen the personal work that I was doing in our Hangouts. And it was probably, I think, 4 or 5 months that we had been talking at that point. And so we had essentially what you could call a working relationship. He would give critique, I would give critique. Our communication was pretty clear, and we were comfortable with one another, being able to talk about each other's work. So when he got into this new role as art director, the project that they were working on, Hellfire, they were looking for new artists, and he asked if that was something that I might be interested in taking on. And I said, yeah, I definitely, absolutely. And he asked me if there was anyone else that I might know that would be interested in that. I think I had mentioned Grant. I think Gary already knew about UZAC at the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he did.
You had jumped in those Hangouts at that point, and so you were also part of that communication. But I don't think Grant was on board until later. So I had name dropped Grant, and I think that's when he had reached out to you, Grant, and that's kind of how our sort of second wave of freelancing experience started, was all through those networks and those connections that we had made both in school and just online. Talking with people. To this day, I still haven't met Gary.
That's true.
We're going out to GDC next week.
Yeah.
We'll meet him for the first time, but we've never met the guy.
In person, anyway, yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know. I just feel like that idea, again, going back to manufactured luck, you create the opportunities to emerge later on down the road, whether or not you're aware of it. And the way I see it, it's nothing more than having good work, having solid work, being sociable, and being kind. As long as you're not an asshole, and you have a good quality portfolio, and you prove that you can do the job. there's really it seems like it's a natural progression of things, and that's what I've started to realize is this idea of freelancing and networking isn't what I thought it used to be. I used to think that networking was just like go to a convention and grab drinks with someone and show your portfolio in front of them.
A lot of business cards.
Yeah, business cards. Just hand business cards out to everyone. And I mean, to an extent, like there's some of that, I suppose. But that's not how I've gotten jobs. Like the jobs that I've gotten have been from just talking with people, and not even about the job. It's just a personal, sociable connection.
Yeah. And just to drive home the point there, like when you were talking to Gary, he wasn't art director at the time. Y'all were just mutually enjoying each other's company. You
exactly, from the very beginning. Yeah.
Next to him because like, hey, bro, let's be friends, and then maybe you can, give me some work or whatever. Like, y'all built a friendship.
Exactly.
And then he got in a position to where he was an art director and had some say on who he wanted working for him. And you were killing it at the time. And I think it was at the time with like your Diablo painting, which, and you won like that thing, and you were getting some attention. You had some solid work, and then that, turned into an actual gig. Like, again, like exactly what you said, you manufactured your own luck. Like, you make your own luck by just working your ass off.
Showing up.
Yeah. I remember hearing that word back when I was in, like, elementary school is showing up. Like, what's that phrase? Like, the people who make it in this world are the people who show up today for that job or something like that. Like, it's you're putting in the hours, and it's it's a grind. There's going to be times where shit's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But having, surrounding yourself with people that are going through the same thing, like, I don't know, that's been kind of a safety net for me, and I don't know, I question where I would be today without it. I really do.
Yeah. I think there's a good Dave Raposa and Dan Warren talk about how hard it can get and all that stuff. But I think having you guys, like I could say without trying to gas you guys up, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it through the initial hump of like really just getting into the mindset of taking on this career path. I don't think I would have made it. And I mean, I certainly wouldn't have had any jobs. Maybe I would have, but it would have been a hell of a lot harder.
Sure.
Well, and then just sorry, no, you go, Grant.
Oh, I was just saying, like what you were saying, Dylan, about showing up. I think is pretty awesome, because that's exactly it. 'Cause a lot of people, you associate like failures with, you're like, oh, you failed, you're a fucking loser. But like losers are the people who like don't put themselves into a position to fail. Like failing is a huge part of this, because if you're failing, that means you're fucking trying. Like you're putting your shit out there. You're learning from that failure. Like you learn way more from your failures than your successes.
Oh yeah.
And I mean that's all there is to it. So just fucking do the art.
Yeah.
Do the art, talk to people, be friendly, like make connections, surround yourself with cool people who are like-minded with you and you can learn from.
Well, and inspired, hardworking people, and
you don't want to be.
You have to seek them out.
By the guy who's not doing anything,
right?
Just, like sitting there, like pouting or whatever. Like you want to surround yourself with a guy who's like kicking ass and is way better than you, because you can learn something, and if they're willing to help you and to teach you what they know, and if you're open, if you're in, being a sponge, like the possibilities are endless. Like there's no reason why you can't make it, as long as you put yourself in that situation to do it.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring up something that I probably should have mentioned earlier, but I just I don't know, everything came kind of like full circle and was sort of this realization when we started kind of working with Direwolf and then going through the this new endeavor as freelancers and stuff. And it was something that James Gurney said when he came to do a talk at RimCAD one day. And I remember we were sitting in the auditorium, and he was talking about the professional world and what it's like, I think, transitioning from student into the workplace. And he said, I want you guys to take a look at the people to your left and take a look at the people to your right. And he said those are the people that you're going to be working with for the rest of your life. You know, those people that are sitting right next to you are the artists that you're going to be working with, collaborating with, working under, supervising, however you want to put it. You guys are going to be doing a lot of the same stuff in the same fields. And at the time, I had thought to myself, you know, yeah, I mean, to an extent, that's kind of true. Like, we'll be doing art or whatever. I never thought that it would literally mean we're going to be in the same building, working like desks next to each other, you know, or working on the same projects, or working on, you know, whatever. Like that sense of I guess connectiveness, like that never really, I don't know, it never really sunk in until, you know, it happened, until it actually happened. And I just, like, I don't know, I had to sit back for a minute and kind of realize, like, whoa, he wasn't messing around. He was absolutely right. You know, this is happening. It's happening right now. And it all starts with you know, connections. It all starts with talking with people, making friends. Like, that's, I don't know. I don't know how any. I don't have any other way to put it. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think that's it. You know.
All right. See you guys.
Yeah.
Good fucking chat.
I think we drove the nail. Yeah.
Well, honestly,
we've also ran pretty long. So.
we have, but it was good.
Yeah,
it was a good
great.
time.
It was great.
Definitely. And I hope people got something out of this. If you're listening to this, thanks for sticking with us for almost 2 hours now.
Is it really 2 hours?
It was an hour.
We just don't bore the shit out of people. I knew I should have thrown in some more dick jokes. I don't know.
Oh man, it wasn't entertaining enough.
There was no lens flares. We didn't have enough. Lens
there was
flares.
not enough chainmail.
Was there anything you wanted to add in there, Raul? Because it was awesome to be able to bring you in here, because I know you're a fucking busy guy. You work all the time, so it was awesome to have your insight from the inside guy from a studio, and, you know, your role as like mentorship basically for a lot of us. So it was awesome to have you in here, dude.
Oh yeah, thanks for asking me to do this, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
And thank you, listeners, if you got through all this. And you know, I think we're gonna try and do a few more of these.
Oh, I definitely.
Because I enjoyed it. I even got, like, you know, I got stuff out of this in my mind, just kind of like we were talking about earlier. Just you know, you do it, but until you're actually talking about it, you kind of comes into light, and kind of a realization, in a sense. So it works on both parts, but. Yeah, I guess we should just quit lingering and just.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later.
All right, peace.
Take care.